Her Excellency Ambassador of Ireland to Uganda, His Excellency Joash Mangi, and today I learned it's Mangi.
I would have said Mangi, so good that I had before.
His Excellency Joash Mangi, the High Commissioner of Kenya to Uganda, the country representative of UNFPA, Gift Balunga, the country representatives of UNDP and UN Women, representatives of the government of Uganda, all male champions, civil society leaders, women leaders, that we are really happy to have all of you here. We see really, some champions who have led the dialogue on gender equality in Uganda. I'm seeing Rita Achiro, I'm seeing Madame Matembe here, so thank you so much for coming. Members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is really a profound honor to welcome you to the Women Uganda 2025 Plus National Dialogue. Plus, because we hope for it to last even longer beyond 2025. This campaign is not like a conversation for its own sake. It really is a platform for reflection, commitment, and transformation. We gather here not only to commemorate 30 years of the Beijing Declaration, but also to examine where we stand and what must still be done. As development partners, we are all deeply engaged in advancing gender equality. Yet the more we work, the more we realize that the single greatest hindrance to equality is the persistence of harmful social and cultural norms. Without a doubt, Uganda has made progress, especially in the government. When you look, you have a female vice president, you have a female prime minister, you have many female ministers who had strong portfolios, more women in parliament, stronger legal protections, and better access to education and health. But numbers alone do not tell the full story. They cannot capture the reality of the girl forced into marriage, the woman denied land, or the survivor of violence whose voice is silenced. That is why we need everyone here, the government, the civil society, the development partners, media, and community leaders. Each actor carries part of the solution. Together, we can begin to dismantle the barriers that keep women and girls from fulfilling their potential. The Women 2025 campaign is unique because of who is leading it. It is driven by female leaders, by female heads of diplomatic missions who show that breaking barriers is possible and that true leadership lifts others up as you rise. And these women are supported by male colleagues, and I think that's what is truly special about this campaign. We are supported by male champions and partners who stand with us in advancing this cause and demonstrating that advancing gender equality is a collective effort. I'm personally honored to be partnering with the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice Flavian Seja. The Ambassador Frederica Quispo is partnering with His Excellency Joash Mangi, the High Commissioner of Kenya. Dr. Paulina Chiwango, for example, from UN Women, partners with Leonard Zulu. Her Excellency Lisa Chesney collaborates with Honorable Minister Norbert Mao, the Minister of Justice. Her Excellency Maria Heckinson of Sweden engages with Mr. Howard Mwesigwa, the chairperson of the European Union Youth Sounding Board. Ms. Gift Malunga works with Mr. Don Sain Muanguzi. I think I've mentioned almost everyone here. Sine. The Danish ambassador is supported by Dr. Jimmy Speyer Sentongo. So just to give you an overview of who we are working with. Ladies and gentlemen, harmful social and cultural norms continue to shape the lives of millions of women and girls in Uganda, limiting their opportunities, limiting access to justice, and the ability to make decisions about their own lives. These norms include the belief that girls are ready for marriage once they reach puberty, the idea that men are the natural decision makers, while women must remain submissive, customs that deny women the right to own or inherit land, and the normalization of violence, with some communities even saying, if a man does not beat you, he does not love you. These deeply entrenched practices not only restrict women's freedom, but also undermine their access to education, health, and legal protections. Let me share the story of Amina, a 14-year-old girl from rural Uganda. She's bright, she's ambitious, and she's top of her class. Amina dreamed of becoming a nurse, but last year her parents married her off to a man twice her age. For them, it was tradition, a way to ease poverty. For Amina, it was the end of her education. Today, instead of carrying books, she carries a baby on her back. Amina's story mirrors that a number of norms persist across Uganda. But it's also important to say that these norms are not uniform. They really differ from one sub-region to another, and that is why we need concretization of these norms. I think we've now reached a level where we've been speaking about social and cultural norms as a blanket term, but we have reached a time where we need to break it down. We must identify them clearly, we must make them specific and relatable, and only by analyzing them in their local context can we empower communities to decide for themselves how to best challenge and replace them. As a matter of fact, and I think it's important to say that, we do not come here as outsiders dictating solutions. We really come here to facilitate dialogue, to support those who find these processes useful in shaping their future. Because cultural change is not imposed, it grows when communities themselves believe in it. And let us not forget women's empowerment and the nation's economic development go hand in hand. No country can prosper while half its people are denied the chance to contribute fully. None of this will succeed if men remain on the sidelines. Harmful norms are sustained not only by women's silence, but also by men's acceptance. When a father keeps his daughter in school, he challenges the belief that a girl's place is only in marriage. When a male leader condemns gender-based violence, he chips away at the culture of silence. When young men practice equality at home, they model a new way of living for the next generation. And this is why male champions are indispensable. They do not replace women's leadership, they amplify it. They use their influence to normalize equality, to challenge injustice, and to show that gender equality benefits all of us. When women thrive, families prosper, communities flourish, and nations grow stronger. Today's dialogue is about this courage, the courage to call harmful norms what they are, not just traditions, but also obstacles to progress. The courage to act, even when it challenges comfort and custom, and the courage to stand together women and men, to build a society rooted in justice and equality. Kofi Annan once said, "There is no tool for development more effective than the empowerment of women." So in this regard, may this event inspire more people, bring new female leaders and male champions on board, and strengthen our collective resolve for this common cause of gender equality. With that, I wish you fruitful deliberations, and I declare the Women Uganda 2025 dialogue as open. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. And you highlighted the fact that this, for the next 30 years of the Beijing Declaration, is a dialogue between men and women, that the fight for equality is not even a fight anymore. It's just a conversation on equality. We'll take men and women in solidarity. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to welcome for our keynote address the State Minister, the Minister of State for Gender and Cultural Affairs, Honorable Peace Mutuzo, to give us her remarks on this conversation. Let's show some love. And to guide, as she gives her remarks, once that is completed, we'll have a photo opportunity with our teams.
Thank you so much, moderator, for your kind words, and thank you for the good reception. I want to thank you so much for making time to be here today for this wonderful conversation. Our Chief, the Deputy Chief Justice, Your Excellencies, the High Commissioners, I want to stand over the protocols already established. Because of time, I can see so many activities running, and we have very responsible people here who I know will shortly need to find time to do other things. The government officials, civil society organizations, the academia, the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to join you today to give keynote address at the Women 2025 Plus National Dialogue on commemoration of 30 years of the Beijing Declaration. This dialogue is a reminder of our collective commitment to end the negative social cultural norms that degrade the rights of women and girls in the country. Allow me begin by congratulating Faraja Africa Foundation for the milestone achieved to convene a reflection space and platform for young women and young people to share their voices and advocate for fair and inclusive policies in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and across Africa. The flagship program, like EU Youth Sounding Board, National Youth Parliament, International Youth Camp, and East African Youth Parliament, have been safe platforms to strengthen the economic, social, and cultural environment for young men and women, while enhancing youth and women's participation in policymaking. We gather here today to have a conversation on critical topics, namely from representation to transformation, leveraging on women's leadership experience for policy change, commemorating Beijing Plus 30, catalyzing national media commitment, and collaborative storytelling that prioritize voice, right, and agency for girls to end teenage pregnancy and child marriage in Uganda, and redefining masculinity, why men must be part of the gender equality conversation. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, forged in the spirit of global solidarity, set a bold vision for advancement of women and girls worldwide. Today, as we reflect on that legacy, we in Uganda stand at a pivotal crossroad, ready to accelerate our journey towards a more gender equitable future. Uganda has witnessed remarkable strides in gender equality in many legislative and social areas. Actually, as we celebrate the Beijing Plus 30, we're also celebrating Uganda 30 years plus. Because in the same year, 1995, when the Beijing was convening is the same year Uganda was starting on their constitutional journey, and I'm happy that Honorable Miriam Matembe was part of that conversation, and she still is here. The theme today, ending harmful social practices, norms against women and girls, resonates very well with the aspirations of the national resistance movement in Uganda. Like before, in the National Development Plan 4, government has prioritized strategies to end harmful social practices and identified women and girls' traits that still survive within their cultural norms and practices. I'm so happy to be here because only last year I was privileged to chair a meeting of women ministers of gender in Africa, where we passed the Convention on Elimination of Harmful Practices about women and girls in Ethiopia. As we talk, the cabinet paper is underway for Uganda to ratify that convention. Under the fourth National Development Plan, we have allocated resources not only just to eliminate, but also to sink the conversation further. We are going to rehabilitate 84, we have already allocated 84 billion to rehabilitate over 1,000 parish community halls, where we shall assemble men and women in villages to have this conversation on table, to ensure that we eliminate harmful practices on gender equality and women's empowerment from the village level to the national level. So this is not going to remain a policy issue or a legislative issue. It's going to be sunk into the brains and minds of the people at the village level. In addition, the government has put in place robust legal and policy framework that have reduced the incidences of gender-based violence, child marriage, and teenage pregnancy in the country. We start with the Constitution to other legislations, and as a result, Uganda has made recommendable progress in taking services nearer to the women and girls. The Public Finance Act 171 mandates all ministries, departments, and agencies, including local government, to allocate resources to implement actions to reduce gender inequalities. The improvements on resource allocation among MDAs and local governments have contributed to better service delivery. Majority of the women and girls, including those residing in rural areas, have access to schools, health centers, clean water, walkable distances to friendly financial service spaces. Consistent with the SDG 5.2, the government remains committed to fully implementing the existing laws and policies to prevent and manage the effects of gender-based violence and end impunity of all perpetrators. In partnership with the development partners, civil society organizations, private sector, government continues to employ multi-sectoral holders, lay strategies, engage communities and families on the benefit of end of gender-based violence and response. Civil society organizations continue to offer GBV prevention and response to services by providing shelters, legal aid, and advice, psychological, health, referral, mediation with family members of survivors, and settlement services. The training on income-generating activities continues. We now have 2 new shelters which were established in Abudat and Terego to provide safe space for survivors, making now a total of 23 shelters in the country. Another gender-based violence shelter was opened recently in Kasese to serve the Rwenzori region. The achievements notwithstanding, there remain gaps and challenges and barriers in the country's quest for attainment of gender equality and women empowerment, and it has limited males' involvement in fighting against harmful social and cultural practices. Female genital mutilation, pregnancy, early pregnancy of children, and marriages are still some among the challenges that are still ingrained within our cultural practices and context. We are equally experiencing a backlash, and now this is more dangerous than all the other things. The backlash and resistance to gain registered change towards gender equality and women empowerment. Especially now within politics, there is a lot of violence that is occurring on women. The economic empowerment that we have now achieved, men are fighting against it. Even the PDM small money that government has been issuing to women, some men still want to get access to that and control it. But also, certain economic empowerment pillars, like owning property, owning animals that are of high value, including crops. Men do not still want for women to get access to coffee, which we know is a high-yielding crop. Animals like cows, they want women to remain with it, chicken and goats, and yet they have the capacity to manage all these high-yielding crops and animals. I wish to inform men that we all stand to benefit when women and girls enjoy their rights and live a free and dignified life. We need men who are role models and allies to gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that all women and girls attain their full potential and enjoy their rights. I wish to reiterate government's commitment to end harmful social and cultural norms in the country. I call upon partners and collaborators among stakeholders in this struggle. I wish to thank the Australian Embassy, Development Partnership, and Faraja Africa Foundation for convening this dialogue and wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you so much for coming, for God and my country.
Thank you so much, Honorable. It is befitting that we get a wonderful photo. You're going to be our chief smiler in the photo. I've been told Okay. All right, let's come back because now we're going into some really good conversations. For this next conversation, I would like to invite somebody who will be leading or moderating a panel. I'm told there's different ways to have this conversation, and I'll let her be the one to introduce how the questions will come in and the different ways. But please welcome the Commissioner for Gender and Women Affairs at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, Ms. Angela Nakafero.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, it was my husband who inspired this campaign because we were having a chat about certain rights in the Netherlands about women in the workforce, and how men are very often better positioned and get certain benefits, and, well, things that I thought everybody knew. But my own husband looked at me rather surprised. And then I realized every time when I speak about women's rights, I speak with other women. There's women's group, and you come together and you speak with your friends, you speak with your colleagues. But the men are often left out of this conversation. And so I thought, things I thought every single person would know, well, clearly half of the population might actually not know. And for me, when it comes to anything to do with women's rights and equality, it is not a woman's problem that needs to be solved by women. It's not a man's problem that needs to be solved by men. It's a societal problem that needs to be solved by societies. And that means all of us. So for me, to involve men was a logical step. But then I was at a meeting with concerning the Ugandan women's movement, and I see some ladies that were there. This was about, I think, a year ago. And so I mentioned something about involving men, and then a young woman got up and said, "But I don't need a male champion. We can champion ourselves." And I thought, that's also true, you know, we can fight our own battles. So that's when I decided that we need the men still, but they can be on board as the plus ones and not as the champions. So I hope that in that way I made up for the comment of that young woman. And I've really noticed as well that honestly, there's women who keep other women down, and there's men that lift them up, and there's women that lift other women up, and men who keep them down. It doesn't matter what your gender is. You have a positive role to play. So that's how we sort of, when we talked about this, with these wonderful women here on the stage, that's and they were happily agreed with me that we need men here as well. So, well, at a breakfast meeting we decided to set this all up, and Joash was a friend from the beginning, involved and willing to be my plus one, for which I'm deeply grateful. And well, it's been. Well, last December I think we got together for the first time. It's been going well so far, at least. Look at this crowd, so I'd say yes.
Thank you very much, Excellence. Excellence is emphasizing that we need men. As allies, we definitely have to work together for gender equality and empowerment of women. Thank you very much for those wonderful ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you also to our friend Katja for inviting us all and giving us this opportunity to talk about something that's so close to all of our hearts. And I know for many people, Sweden is very, very strongly associated with specifically gender equality. And I think rightly so, and I'm very happy to have that sort of perspective on all we do. I think I would want to just, in answering your question, point to a few principles in how we have been working and how we are working. And the first is the importance of an inclusive approach. That when we work on gender equality, we have to focus on youth, women from grassroots levels, people with disabilities, and other vulnerable groups. If we want to have impact, we have to be inclusive. The other one is to have a holistic approach, to make sure that we target all the barriers for women's political participation and gender equality. which, and one of these key components on being holistic is, of course, the whole purpose of the campaign, the involvement of men and boys. And in my previous posting when I was in Kinshasa, we talked a lot about positive masculinity, which is not a concept we use so much, but it's around the same thing, and I think it's really a win-win. I have myself 2 boys, and I really would want them to be in a world where masculinity is positive, where they are not also constrained by stereotypes. So it's important that what we do is benefiting both girls and boys, and as Frederica said, of course, that this is an issue for society and not for individuals or groups. But when I talk about holistic approach, we of course also have to work at the root causes to gender equality, and we, Katja talked a lot about the norms and values, but I would maybe also want to lift the economic empowerment. And if you look at Sweden and our society, what changed? It's when women actually also got economically empowered, and then that's when you see also a lot of political changes, norms changing, and of course one lead to the other, and it's not always easy to say what is the chicken and what is the egg. But I think economic empowerment, to have that freedom, it's critical if you want to claim your rights as a woman. And then also the strong collaboration needed between all actors. Government, of course, but both at local and national level, women's organization, legal sector, local community leaders, religious leaders. So really a collaborative approach. And without taking too much time, just to say that some of us up here were in Karamoja last week. It was the Irish ambassador, myself, the Danish and the Dutch, because we have a joint program there. And we had a very strong gender theme, women's rights. And I think we could see actually all of these aspects playing in. Of course, you read the statistics and the data of Karamoja, and it's not uplifting, but when you go there and you meet the grassroots leaders, when you actually see the availability, engagement of local leaders, when you see the dialogues going on between civil society, women leaders, district leaders, even with the sad data and of course the many sad experiences by girls, you still could leave rather hopeful and inspired. And then maybe just finally to say from a Swedish point of view is that gender mainstreaming is something we do in all we do. Not only that we do gender work, but if we do a climate, a trade, a road, humanitarian, whatever it is, we have to do gender mainstreaming, which means that we have to include women's participation in program design, decision making, leadership, and implementation. And I think that's also where we all, the way we all have to go. And I think the way Uganda is in the forefront on gender responsive budgeting is one very good example that you should really be proud of here in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellency Senjito Topwas, what contributions has Denmark prioritized to close the gender disparities, and how can development partners align their programs with Uganda's policy priorities? Over to you, Excellency.
Thank you very much. And well, I think often people will ask me if Denmark is the capital of Sweden, and I think that's because we are very similar, and I must say I had prepared to say more or less exactly what Maria has said. So I could also close now, but since I have the microphone, I think I'll still give a few examples. We are also, as Denmark, deeply committed to working on closing gender disparities. It's a priority that cuts across all of our programs, and it's also because we can see that gender gaps exist in basically all spheres of life here in Uganda as well. So we are looking at the economic sphere, education, health, political power, and so on. So of course it's an area where you actually have to focus on the gender challenges within all different sectors. It's something that we do as well as our Swedish colleagues in a very holistic way, and we are really deliberately trying to move beyond just empowerment and also addressing structural systemic barriers that limits women's participation. So for us, it's not just a moral imperative, it's not just important in itself, it's also a very strategic approach to achieving greater prosperity, a more peaceful society, a more stable society. This is something that I think a lot of evidence points to it, and something that is deeply integrated in our own societies. A few elements that I would highlight where we've seen it particularly important, and some of the program elements. We have a very strong focus on the youth. Of course, because Uganda mainly consists of youth, and youth are the future, and getting it right from the beginning makes a lot of sense, rather than having to come in when goals are already lacking behind. So we have a program actually together with our lovely colleagues from UNFPA that had to go, where we focus specifically on strengthening adolescents and young people's empowerment and rights. And an interesting thing is that we actually work a lot with positive masculinity in this program. And just as we, old ladies here, have invited older men as our change makers, we have involved young boys, 220 young boys, as role model boys. So working with young boys, advocating for positive masculinity and tackling the root causes of gender-based violence, promoting intergenerational dialogue that can challenge some of the harmful practices such as teenage pregnancy, child marriage. We heard in Karamoja female genital mutilation as well. And involving boys from the beginning, also involving young boys in having conversations with older men and their leaders, is a very powerful tool to secure the rights of women. So I have 2 girls. I'm very happy to hear that those with 2 boys also focus a lot on raising those boys in the right way. Of course, I raise my girls to stand up for themselves and know their limits, but I think it's equally as important to work with the young boys and understanding their role. Another area that we have seen of crucial importance is to work with gender equality in our refugee programming. We often see that gender disparities often are exacerbated in humanitarian crisis. Women and young girls are often hit hardest within all sorts of crises, climate, humanitarian, others. So working with very deliberately including women and girls in all interventions in refugee areas, and working around sexual and gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health and rights in refugee settings is something that we have found to be critical to close the gaps. And then the last thing I would say is coming back to Maria's point on our joint Karamoja visit, we are very deliberate in working with localization, so really working with local organizations. Of course, wonderful organizations that are here in Kampala doing wonderful work across the country, but also very, very local organizations in Karamoja and West Nile, because we also realize that most women in Uganda live in rural areas, and the women living in rural areas knows best what they need and how they need it. So that's really a very deliberate effort, and I think you asked how we can align programming with Uganda priorities. Uganda have very good policies and very good priorities in many ways. What we can do is ensure that those policies and those programs are implemented actually at the local level, and to make sure that the accountability for what goes on at the local level is brought all the way up to the national level, so we don't miss the gap. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Deputy High Commissioner to Uganda to share with us the lessons we can draw from UK in terms of implementing gender policies, especially addressing the entrenched harmful practices. Over to you, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I have to say, normally my heart sinks if I'm like the fourth or the fifth to speak when they've said all the good points. But I have to say, I'm really uplifted. You know, there's that phrase, a manel, when you're confronted, and we've all been there with many, many men sitting in panels and not a woman's voice. I love being on the opposite. What are we? Are we a womal or a femal? I don't know. But it's really uplifting for me being part of that. And I love this topic. I think it's a fantastic topic. How do we leverage women's leadership experience to drive policy change? I get excited about it from my government's point of view, because tackling inequality, promoting the rights of women and girls wherever they are across the globe, promoting women's leadership, it's at the core of what the UK does. But you'd expect me to say that, right? I also get excited about it personally, and I know that each and every one of us do. Because if I think back when I was growing up, I think back over history, I saw campaigners, politicians and role models do that, leverage their experience to drive policy change. You know, in history, I'm studying about women's right to vote and seeing how people fought for that, seeing 1970s politicians campaign for equal pay, seeing politicians campaign for women's rights to own property. So my message, I guess, if you're a politician or a campaigner or an activist, actually that's way more exciting to me than a diplomat, because actually leadership in any single form has got the propensity to bring about policy change, and we've all seen that. I think the other thing I'd say from a UK's policy journey, I think we learn from each other. I learn every single day from speaking to women leaders in Uganda about what their lived experience is leading. Whether that's super inspiring ministers who are changing laws, breaking boundaries, but also carry a whole other load that I can't even contemplate, a whole other load that they have to do as a woman before they fulfill their duties as a minister or as a politician. So this is a mutual learning. And to pick out sort of 5 things maybe on the UK's journey, and our policy journey has got many bumps in it, and we're still on that journey, perhaps importantly to say. I think the first thing I'd pick out is that it's constant. And Dr. Katia, you touched on this. There are really so many visible signs of progress, but the invisible signs of the barriers that hold people back are still very much there. So it's a constant conversation. I think the second thing from a UK point of view is we've learned over time that you need the carrot and the stick. It's not enough to have those laws and the enforcement piece. You've actually got to have the benefits that allow those making the laws and the policies, the benefits that make people think, being gender inclusive puts me in a better off position. So I think the UK's learned that you need both of those. I think the third thing, and this is often where I look to my Scandinavian colleagues for inspiration, is that if you're going to change harmful practices, harmful norms, it's got to be woven through society, and it's got to be there from the get-go. So when I say woven through society, one of the things I think has been really instrumental for the UK has been the Advertising Standards Authority has a mandate now that it has to support gender inclusivity. The BBC thinks really carefully when it's picking for the 5th bulletin in the day an expert that's going to talk about maritime security or economic policy. It will look very carefully at what it's represented of the public over that week and think very carefully, well, how do I make sure that this is representing the country, the full face of the country? I think that's really helped us. It's woven into society. Education, as I know many of us care really strongly about, education drives more positive attitudes to gender, full stop. If we think of the harmful practices such as teenage marriage, child marriage and teenage pregnancy, education has got probably the biggest opportunity to change that, to open minds. And I think the fourth thing I'd pick up would be evidence, bringing evidence into the discussion. That partly links to that point about benefits. So lots of European studies show that gross domestic product per capita would be 10% higher by 2050 with greater inclusivity, greater gender inclusivity. You can't argue with that. So there's many, bringing evidence into the debate is key. And I think the last thing I'd say would be exactly as Her Excellency Frederica Kispel has done since the beginning, is have the right people in the room. So we're part of the right people, we're all part of the right people, but just like a shout out to our plus ones, and let's get people that disagree with what we're saying in the room. I'd love our next debate to have more people that want to argue back on this, because I feel actually many of us believe this, so that's going to be a challenge I'll set myself with my plus one Norbert Mao. How can we bring people in the room that are getting in the way, perhaps? And the very last thing, Madam Moderator, that I will say is just, we're doing a lot from a UK point of view. We weave gender inclusivity in everything we do, as my colleagues do, whether it is access to agricultural credit, whether it's climate resilient programming, whether it's where UK export finance looks to, whether it's British international investment. What's the social impact this company's having? Do they deserve that money? So it's hardwired through what we do. We cannot deliver tenfold growth and really get the benefit of the ATMs without continued progress. And I salute all the progress that's there. Unlock the progress to really deliver that mission as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Angela. UN Women is one of the youngest UN agencies. We're just 15 years old. We turned 15 in July, and UN Women came into existence 15 years ago with the very strong voice and agency of civil society, calling for the existence of UN Women to accelerate progress on gender equality and women's empowerment, and is also one of the very few agencies to have a triple mandate, looking not only at operational issues in terms of implementing programs on the ground, but most importantly, our mandate evolves from the global level, which is looking at the normative aspect of gender equality, where we set standards, support existence of frameworks, and then support their generation into action on the ground. And of course, the third area is gender coordination mandate, supporting government, the United Nations, to deliver in these areas. Now, Beijing Platform for Action is now being assessed at global level, and hopefully at the Commission of the Status of Women 70 would be when the entire globe will come together to assess progress on Beijing Platform for Action. Each country has been requested to identify 6 priority areas. But lately, I mean, the UN Women thought, well, that's too broad. Now let's zero in on 2. So fortunately, I work very closely with Madam Angela, and I have identified 2 key areas in Uganda. But I would like to highlight what UN Women has done in the 6 priority areas more broadly. Of course, it will cover those 2. The 2 are ending violence, I'm sure you all agree with that, as well as women's peace and security. So the other areas are on digital transformation, freedom from poverty, full decision making, and climate justice. So those 6 areas have been identified by UN Women globally based on research that was conducted and very clearly showed that these are the 6 areas where there remains to be some transformation that would really capture the lived realities of women and girls. So in these 6 areas, here in Uganda, UN Women has worked in all these areas. Some of our very strong partners in the last 5 years, we did receive very clear funding from Sweden that was unearmarked, and this enabled us to create and develop some models of transformation on women's economic empowerment in 2 communities in Uganda, one in Bugiri and one in Noya. So I would like to highlight these 6 areas and what UN Women has done so far. In terms of digital revolution, we all know that there's that digital divide where women are more far behind and disproportionately affected in the context of digital transformation. UN Women, it's a pilot program so far. It is a program called African Girls Can Code Initiative. This is an Africa-wide program that equips adolescent girls and young women between the ages of 17 to 25 to be skilled in the area of coding, robotics, and programming so that they can develop products that would create solutions in their communities. We see girls, developing and manufacturing robots. So far, we've worked with 244 girls in Uganda, in Jinja, Karamoja, where are the other 2 places? Jinja, Karamoja, Lango, and Fort Portal. And in these locations, we've identified those young girls who would, they're already making a change in their community, and they're on the path to transforming the landscape in terms of technology and innovation. Also, we've worked with media partners to address what we call insensitivity on social media and other media platforms within the context of the digital space. And also their work has helped to transform and to counter narratives that continue to discriminate against women within the media. The second area, and this is an area that UN Women is really proud of, we worked with 1,400 women in a community called Bujiri to break this glass ceiling in the area of aquaculture. This was an exclusive preserve for men, but UN Women worked with them to develop a model, and right now they have established a cooperative, a limited liability cooperative that is fishing on the Victoria Lake, and they have identified empowerment models that is looking at export markets, and they have really been strengthened, and the work that we've done in that area is strengthening family resilience and cutting across the challenges that they have faced. The second community where we worked to develop a scalable model on women's economic empowerment is in Noya. And here we have partnered with a limited liability company called Delight Uganda. If you've ever bought some mango juice or fruit juice from Delight Uganda, this might be some of the producers that UN Women works with. So it is a public-private partnership enterprise where we have helped them to stem post-harvest, transform their livelihoods in that community. And many of those families have been uplifted, and the entire family. So in some of the communities, we've not only empowered women, we've empowered the families to address the backlash that sometimes women face in the area of women's economic empowerment. The third area is on zero violence. And you all know about Spotlight Initiative. UN Women has worked closely with other UN partners, UNFPA, UNDP, UNHCR, and what's the last one? Yes. So we've worked together. That's UN Women. I didn't mention UN Men. So we've worked together to scale up service delivery to women and girls and strengthen referral pathways. And one of the major areas that we've advanced the rights of women is in the area of access to justice. And thanks to the Embassy of Austria in this area. We have engaged men and boys, which the previous speakers have highlighted. And we work very closely with cultural and traditional and religious leaders to tackle those norms, those discriminatory norms that continue to perpetuate inequality at community level. Let me move on very quickly to decision making. Yes, I'm going to conclude right now. Decision making, women's peace and security, climate justice. UN Women has worked very closely in this area. But just to mention two cross-cutting areas. I had mentioned the 6 areas, but there are 2 cross-cutting areas on financing for gender equality and gender data. And these 2 areas are really critical because without the data and without financing, there is no way we can really ensure that we advance transformation in the lives of women and girls in Uganda. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much. Afternoon, everybody. So much has been said, but in the interest of time, I'd say my key takeaway is that change is possible, that traditions and culture do change, and I think for Ireland we take a lot from our own experience. You know, the situation of women in Ireland over my lifetime is absolutely transformed. When I was born, if a woman had a child or got married, she couldn't work for government. She couldn't be a public servant anymore. There was no contraception, there was no inheritance, there was no expectation that they'd go beyond secondary school. And that the difference between the opportunities my mother had and I have and my daughters have, it's just night and day. And I think we've taken so many of those lessons of our own very bumpy also, and definitely not complete, experience into the work that we do in partner countries, and particularly our own experience of peace building on the island of Ireland. So we also had quite a complex process, but the needle really started to move in the 80s when some of the mothers from across different communities in Northern Ireland came together, and they're just like, we want the same thing. We want peace for our children, our grandchildren. We want the same future. We want the killing to stop. And it was really when it was an alliance of women working at very community level and then at different levels of leadership. And it was really when they started to get people into the room and talking and being quite frank about some of the challenges on the island that the process kind of got a new momentum. And I think we've brought some of that experience and the understanding, as someone said, of just how constant it is. Like we've 25 years And every day we're building peace in Ireland, and we're protecting peace, and we're at very community level preventing conflict. And I think that's something that all around the world I've seen. You know, women in villages, in households, in communities, diffusing situations before they've happened, and keeping information, challenging, up in Karamud, girlfriends and wives, being a conduit to speak to some of the rustlers, to get them to come in, to get them to disarm. But it's that sort of understanding that we all have a part to play, but women do have a particular role in peace building and in bringing about societal change, but they can't do it, as many other people have said, without the support of the men around them and without everybody really understanding that everybody gains. You know, that everybody will benefit from a society in which women can participate fully, in which we have equality, and in which we have a safe space to acknowledge conflict, to acknowledge inequality, to acknowledge injustice, and to talk through the common ground we have, that we're all looking for a country that's more stable, more prosperous, more equal, with opportunity for all. So I can think of so many examples. There's one particular example. I was most recently in Tanzania, and we had a reflective leadership program at community level with the local organization. And they had worked with the boda boda drivers, the piki piki, is it? Boda boda, okay. So the motorbike drivers. And the motorbike drivers were bringing a lot of girls to school, and quite poor girls to school. There was less boarding school in Tanzania than here. But they considered it pretty normal. I would say it had been very normalized to have transactional sex to bring girls to school. And it was really very normalized. And over a period of about 18 months, working with the boys, talking to them about their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, you know, and the type of society that they wanted. And by the end of, I'd say, 18 months, quite a lot of them were bringing girls to school for free, because they could see that their communities would benefit from more girls being educated. But certainly they were holding each other to account. So if they heard of instance, or if people reported instance of a particular driver, then others would go in a group to them to talk to them and just say, this might have seemed normal a couple of years ago, this is not normal and it's not okay. So there can be a real change, I think, through some of these processes. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Excellency, re-emphasizing the centrality of peace for development. And of course also calls for social norm change for us to be able to enjoy peace. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least is Dr. Katia, the head of mission, the head of the Austrian Embassy in Uganda. Austria has invested heavily in terms of survivor-centered access to gender equality. Dr. Katia, please share with us how the Austrian Embassy has invested in survivor-centered justice, access to justice and social protection to advance gender equality in Uganda. How can these efforts, through the partnership like Women 25 Plus campaign, be scaled up to challenge the harmful cultural practices and build a more inclusive Uganda? Over to you.
Is it on? Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Angela. As you said, Austria is really active in the area of justice, and specifically in finding innovative ways of mainstreaming gender justice into the justice system. So we work closely together with our partners, UNFPA and UN Women, looking at fast-tracking SGBV cases, looking at piloting SGBV courts, such as in we've done together with the judiciary and the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice in Masaka, in Gulu, I think also in Arua, where also the Netherlands Embassy is is on board. I think, yeah, a lot has been said. What I think I would like to stress is still, even when working and focusing on the justice sector and, you know, training and building capacity of the police, of the prosecution, of the forensics department, of the judges and the judiciary, to really attain justice, there are so many other things that also need to be in place. And I think what, you know, instead of listing all these norms, I just would like to maybe tell one story. Of course, there are so many cases I could speak of, but there's one particular case that really, you know, helped me to look at things differently. So there was, I think, a businesswoman, Ugandan businesswoman, who used to frequently travel to Dubai to buy her goods from there and bring them back to Uganda to sell them here. So she was in a violent relationship, and I think one time her boyfriend or her partner got it into his head that she must have a boyfriend in Dubai, and that's why she's traveling so frequently there. So when he once picked her up from the airport, they drove home, and he beat her up very badly. And as a result, she was not able to walk anymore. So she was paralyzed. But she also had a number of children, I think 3 children. So this case actually went to court for attempted murder. And then the story was told to me by the High Court judge. So so this person, of course, the offender was on remand, and then it came to the trial, and then when the woman had to speak, she begged the judge not to sentence the husband. She says, for me personally, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore, but if he is sentenced, my children will not be welcome in this family anymore. My children will have nowhere to go. I cannot work. The government is not sustaining me. There is no payments I get. There is nowhere I can put the children. So she was really begging the judge. And I think the judge, as a result, gave a very lenient sentence that she, from a judicial point of view, was not happy with. But because of the realities on the ground, she felt like that was the most logical and rational thing to do. So one of these aspects that we also need to think about is definitely the social protection system, and how the absence of such systems can really, how can I say, impact the justice system in a way where not always justice itself is at the center of it. So I think I want to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for sharing your insights. And allow me to open up the discussion to only 3, those with a burning point or comment to make to the Excellencies on what they've shared with us. By show of hands, Honorable Milia Matembe, number 1. Number 2, the youth leader. Number 3, at the back. So, Honorable Dr. Milia Matembe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, Your Excellencies, and the representative from UN Women. I greet you all. Ladies and gentlemen in the room.
Please be precise in the interest of time.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I will be precise. I must say I am very inspired from listening to the leaders in front of us today. the young people at the back. We like sitting at the back for some reason, but we're really inspired to move from just representation to transformation and listening to the agenda of Beijing Plus 30. I am just reflecting on the fact that 30 years from now, a young child born today will probably be 30 years old, or the ladies, young people who are here today will be more than that, and so will be the ones in the positions you are at today. And my question to you would be around how best can we sustainably involve young women and girls in co-designing programs so that when a program gets done, when a campaign is completed, there is still a sustainable approach to it. I am aware of the Chevening scholarships with the British High Commission. Austria has been doing a lot of work with Faraja Africa and youth inclusion. Denmark has also ably spoken about the youth inclusion, but above all, as a member of the European Union Youth Sounding Board, we already see that happening. But then in the end, what then can we do sustainably? But if you're already doing that, then what best practices can we learn from your countries as development partners to also include in Uganda? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's take the three. There's a lady at the back. Apologies, I've not been able to keep your names. You can also give us your reflection on what the excellencies have shared with us.
For me, I was just here enjoying listening. Now you disturb me to ask questions. I want to thank the excellencies and you distinguished presenters. But you know what is amazing? You are talking of inclusiveness, and yet in your embassies you are only women.
Don't worry, all of our deputies.
I've been wondering. I've been wondering where is the inclusiveness. But I want to thank you for what you've told us. I want to say to apologize actually and blame myself, because when the Netherlands Excellency launched that program, I was there. And in my mind, I thought I would come over and we have a chat. I don't know what happened, but I think I was engaged with them many things because I wanted us to come. I said that was a wonderful thing. I wanted to come and we discussed the strategies on how we are going to achieve what we are achieving. But I failed. I don't know. I never turned up. But I hope next time now I'll be available. Because especially when you are talking of that inclusiveness, male support, I want, since you gave me a microphone, if I don't have a question, it is your fault. Now, what I want to say, I think these people are hearing, yes. What I want to say is that for us here in this country, by Beijing conference, we were all vibrant already. Actually, we impacted onto that 12 critical areas of concern in Beijing. We did have tremendous impact because, you know, like I remember when we are in Mandai, we were given a slot to address the plenary session, each of us at different times. And when we talked, the whole audience clapped and standing ovation because we were fire vibrant and that kind of thing. And that's what was happening here in Uganda, even before the Beijing. And then Beijing, of course, added on. Now, when we had started, we knew that we needed men and women, that the struggle for gender equality and women's empowerment was a struggle, a journey for both men and women to free the women from the chains, bondages that tie them in chains, to release them to use their wisdom and talents to realize their full potential for the community, for the society, and for the nation. We never looked at it as ours alone. And for that matter, I think some members of ACFOD are here. Action for Development. when we founded ourselves, we even staged a play at the National Theatre which was entitled The Time Bomb. We are telling all these men and women that we have risen and we are going to fight. And therefore, if you men don't join us in this fight, the time bomb will burst because, and as we talk now, there is a time bomb here. Because, yeah, men and bishops and so, they are saying, the boy child has been neglected, the boy child has been neglected. But we never neglected the boy child, but it's because they never rose up to embrace the struggle together with us. They never did. We struggled, but some of them did, some others we would be very, very far. So my question now, having said this, for you, what did you do to make sure that these men came on board and you worked together? Because it is a journey. I have to explain to men every time. Me, I address men and women. I have to tell them, when we are fighting for women's rights, remember, in the life of every man, there are at least 4 women. The mother, the wife, the sister, and the daughter. And I tell them we are fighting for those. They are the ones violated. They are the ones not getting education. They are the ones not empowered. I explain to these things. But still they now, you know, like they fight. They don't want women to be empowered. They say empowered women cannot be married. All this kind of nonsense. So how did you break through that kind of thing to ensure that the men will be with you and then all of us together, and to make them see the importance of a woman to humanity? Because if every man and woman can see the value and importance of a woman or a girl or child to humankind, I think they would raise up and join us. So how are you doing that? Because we've been struggling. For us, for you are saying transformation. What did you call the title? Representation for transformation. For us, we secured representation for change. Yes, there have been a lot of change. Women are there. But are they transforming the system to make it gender balanced and effective? So those are what goes in my mind. I think you have a question to answer. Otherwise, sorry, I was not ready to.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe. Her Excellency Fredericky would like to respond to your question.
If I can right away, thank you so much. And thank you for being there 30 years ago. And thank you for still fighting the good fight and doing it with so much passion. And I'm sure that is an inspiration. And I'm sorry to hear that all the young women are in the back of the room. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But how to get men on board is, for me, in this particular campaign, we started with the men who are already the change makers, the men that are willing, the men that know what they're talking about, the men that understand what we're doing, the men that understand the importance of women, and there's many of them. Thank heavens for that. And I noticed that especially when these men start talking to men that are less willing to listen to us, that are less willing to be involved, they do listen better. When Joash is speaking and he tells the story about growing up in Kenya, I see that, and it shouldn't be the case that some men listen better to him than to me, but it is the case. So I think that, different people know how to reach different groups. So find the ones that are very willing to work with us and understand, and have them reach out to the ones that listen less. Maybe that was those are my thoughts. But I think Sina also has some points to make.
Thank you very much, Excellency. We can have only 2 in response to the question because we are not doing very well in terms of time.
No, can I just add one thing that is also a little bit to the first question? I think a key sort of priority is to not make anything regarding gender equality a boys against the girls. I mean, there's nothing in any of the strategies that we have that are trying to take anything away from men or in any way put men down. And I don't see men in general as the opponent at all. And I don't think we will get anywhere also in terms of sustaining progress on getting what we need in the constant push in terms of structural, financial, political change. We will not get any of that if we alienate half of the population just to bring the other half up. So I think the key is also how we talk about it, and that's why I'm actually quite, I want to move on to the next panel, because I do think that media and sort of influencers and politicians, important people in power have a huge role to play in terms of how they talk about it. And even, I mean, in Denmark, where we are very gender equal, there is still a lot of cry, oh, now all the women are coming, poor us men, you know? And it's not, it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be how we talk about it. We should really talk about how we rise together, how we uplift each other by really involving both women and girls. So I think that's a key point for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time.
Just a sentence. First question.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about scaling up predictable, sustainable funding and accountability. Accountability on the part of government. We know that the government has put measures in place to ensure that planning reflects gender equality. But is it trickling down into results, into actual spending? So that accountability is key. And then the second thing is to scale up innovative models that have been proven to work across the world. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemi. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to clap for my panel. They've done a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And of course to you, Ms. Angela Nakafero, for doing a fantastic job at moderating this conversation. And I think just like, the ambassadors have shared on stage, and also Dr. Miriam Matembe, that, it's not that we're fighting for equality anymore. I think we're past that. It's the quality. We're removing the E and saying quality of resources, quality of opportunities, quality of inclusions. We're not just taking a table or a chair or a seat at the table. We're now taking the right seat at the table. So it's very key. I would like to invite, I did mention earlier that I had a conversation over lunch with somebody, and one I will now very much look around for, because you spoke so well. And just remind you, of course, a big thanks to UNFPA, our co-convener. Please welcome the Executive Director of Awesome Minds Speaks, Mr. Don Zane Mwanguzi. Please welcome.
And we want you to watch it and listen to it, but most importantly, reflect on it. Please.
My name is Gift Malunga. I'm the UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund country representative here in Uganda. I'm really concerned about teenage pregnancy, because I think it is really both a public health problem and a development issue. We say it is a public health issue because it is one of the major causes for maternal deaths, because young girls, their bodies are
I think technology is against us, but we are not shaken.
My name is Gift Malunga. I'm the UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund country representative here in Uganda. I'm really concerned about teenage pregnancy, because My name is Gift Malunga. I'm the UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund Country Representative. My name is Gift Malunga. I'm the UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund Country Representative in Uganda. I'm really concerned about teenage pregnancy because I think it is really both a public health problem and a development issue. You see, it is a public health issue because it is one of the major causes for maternal deaths. Because the young girls, their bodies are not well developed. So when complications arise, they easily succumb. But it is also a development issue because teenage pregnancy is one of the major causes of school dropout. And then it robs the young girls of the opportunity to pursue their education. So when I look at the media, I think the media has a strategic role to play, first as an educator, because the media can disseminate accurate, age-appropriate, and culturally sensitive information about reproductive health, about contraception, about the risks of teenage pregnancy. So I see the media playing a strategic role here. But secondly, I think that the media can also be a catalyst for change by challenging the harmful social norms and religious practices that perpetuate teenage pregnancy. Because they can do this by storytelling, by drama, by entertainment, but also highlighting in the process the benefits of keeping girls in school. I dream of a day or a world or a Uganda where young girls pursue education, they pursue their dreams, and when they are kept in school and they now become gainfully employed, they can also make savings. Not only are they going to look after their families or themselves, but when they make savings and investments, then they are contributing to national development. You see, and this is how we can achieve sustainable development goals. But I also think the media has another role to play by being an amplifier of the voices of young people. There are young people, young adolescent girls and boys out there who cannot speak, but the media can amplify their voices. They give them the space to talk. They can publicize the stories of what is happening. Young people who can say what they feel about what is happening around them, especially how teenage pregnancy affects them. But also we are fortunate because our government here, they have a re-entry policy. But many young girls do not know that when you become pregnant, you have a baby, you can go back to school. It is not the end of life. So the media can still play such a big role. The media can also hold the policymakers and leaders accountable because these are duty bearers. Some of them are the perpetrators of gender-based violence, even child marriage. So the media can hold them accountable. So the media is really a catalyst for change. They are not only a conveyor or a messenger, but a catalyst for change. They are a strategic partner. We cannot address teenage pregnancy without engaging the media. We can then prevent preventable maternal deaths, unmet need for family planning, and prevent gender-based violence and harmful practices, and make the world better for young people, especially adolescent girls.
A very huge hand clap. She's amazing, isn't she? Your Excellencies, ambassadors, distinguished guests, leaders of the media, members of the press, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. On behalf of UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Roundtable 2 of Women Uganda 2025 plus national dialogue. Today's discussion focuses on a critical theme, catalyzing national media commitment and collaborative storytelling that prioritizes voices, rights, and agency of girls to end teenage pregnancies and child marriage in Uganda. As we commemorate 30 years since the Beijing Declaration, we celebrate Uganda's progress in advancing gender equality. Yet, we must also confront the reality, harmful social culture norms, gender-based violence, and limited opportunities continue to deny many girls the opportunity to realize their full potential. The media is a powerful ally in this struggle. Beyond informing the public, the media has the ability to shape narratives, change harmful practices, and amplify voices that are often too silenced, especially of those adolescent girls. This roundtable is not another dialogue, it is a call to action. We look at you as leaders in Uganda's sector to promote editorial guidelines that ensure responsible gender-sensitive reporting, to build the capacities of journalists to report on GBV and SRHR with sensitivity and accuracy, to elevate youth-centered storytelling that brings voices of girls to the forefront of national discourse, to make collective commitments that will sustain momentum and impact well beyond today's dialogue. We are privileged to have ambassadors and development partners with us. Global solidarity, we are privileged to have ambassadors and development partners with us whose reflections will enrich today's discussion. Their engagement underscores global solidarity and shared commitment to ensure that every girl can live free from child marriage and teenage pregnancy, with full access to her rights and opportunities. I extend sincere appreciation to our distinguished media panelists for sharing their expertise, to our partners, the ambassadors, the government of Uganda, the Faraja Africa Foundation, the Austrian Embassy, for collaborating with us to make this impact conversation possible. It is now my pleasure to invite our moderator, Ms. Laura Criado, Program Coordinator for Gender and Youth, UNFPA, to guide us through this timely discussion. Thank you. Hey guys, also clap for me. I'm speaking on behalf of UNFPA. Yeah, right now I'm the representative. I'm joking, thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So let me call for a better clap for him, the UNFPA representative, our youth. My name is Laura Criado. I am very glad and honored to be here and moderating this panel. This is going to be a very interactive panel, so don't be surprised when I call all of you at all levels to participate in the panel. Let me start introducing my distinguished panelists. I will start with the representative from Uganda Media Women's Association. I think we have a generational renewal as well. We had in the room a key advocate with us, Ms. Margaret, but of course in the panel we have also young people with a lot of experience that will be sharing the experience. So Madame Joanne Comfort, she's a human rights advocate, a practicing journalist that has a lot of experience in broadcasting in TV and radio. Big round of applause for her, please. She's representing Vision Group. She's the senior HR business partner and content development. Key to our agenda today. A big clap for her as well. The third panelist, and of course we need gender balance. This campaign is about women leader and male champions. So we will have our male advocates in the panel. We will have Mr. Obed Katurebe, the Executive Director of Uganda Media Center, that is key in framing the content on the news that is reaching the audience in Uganda. He has more than 25 years of experience and is a passionate advocate on gender equality and a proud family man. Another round of applause for him, please. And finally, you may know him as well, Uncle Mark. Mark Akaba. He's a seconded media person with Next Media and a global moderator. We are very happy to have you on board as well. Another clap for him. I think in the introductory remarks for the panel, already set the tone about the importance of why having the media with us today as we mark 30 years of Beijing Declaration. We have done a lot, we have progressed and achieved a lot of milestones, but there are still gaps. And as gender equality practitioners, we feel that the media has a very important role to play. So we are here today to learn from you. What are you already doing, contributing to shifting gender norms and harmful practices from your positions in different media houses? But also, what else can you do and commit? So my role today is going to be easier. I'm not going to be the one asking you the questions. I'm going to ask the female leaders of this campaign, Women Uganda 2025, our heads of mission, to be the ones asking you the key questions. So let me start with the chief of the chair of the campaign, the one that started with this powerful campaign, Her Excellency Frederick. I think someone can help us with the mic. Here, in the meantime, I can give you this one. With the first question.
Well, you didn't see it, but while you're all sitting here, we as heads of mission were also texting to one another to say that this is a great crowd, but we feel like everybody very much agrees on the topic, right? I don't think there's anybody here who really feels like, hey, let's not, I don't agree on this, I feel like I'm losing out a lot. So it's important to talk amongst ourselves, to talk with the people who feel for this topic and who are involved and are willing to engage. So I'm so happy that this is happening today. But how do we reach those people who feel that they're losing when women rise? The people who have a different view, the people who would prefer women maybe not to work or have more traditional roles or not play a large part in society. And what can media do to help us with that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think, yeah, Joan, maybe you can start with the question and we can take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much. As introduced, I am Joan Comfort Valiset, the Vice Chairperson, Uganda Media Women's Association, the main organization, or that one organization that is really intentional about today's topic. We've done so much in line with that. And in regards to the question, what can we do as media to bring on board the people that feel if we are to empower women, something is wrong? So I feel what we need to do is to help them appreciate that what we are doing is not just for the women, but it is something that cuts across. Because imagine a family where it is only the man that is earning. What happens when this man can no longer earn? Does the family stop living? We help them understand that this is a human rights issue. It is not about gender. It is not about age. It is not about how tall or how big one feels they are. So if we are able to get to that space where the other gender or the other person that feels they're being left behind appreciates that if one person is empowered or is equipped enough, then that means there is growth and social transformation for all of us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the brief response. Let me just allow me to follow up, because as a moderator, I still need to get the outcome of the panel. So from your position in the media, Women's Media Association, what are you already doing and what else you can do to ensure that the ones that are not heard can be heard from the media?
Our vision as Uganda Media Women's Association is a nation where men, women, and the girls are able to make informed decisions when it comes to gender and all that. So what are we already doing? We've done quite a number of capacity building. Over 1,500 journalists have been trained in line with gender-sensitive reporting. And while we are training the journalists, we are not only looking at the female, we are involving the men as well. We are, bringing them on board for them to appreciate what we are doing and for them to be able to report in the best way possible, which is the right way. That includes each and every person. So we're already doing that. We have also gone ahead as Uganda Media Women's Association to publish, we have training manuals in regards to the topic that we are looking at, gender. We have gone ahead to partner with different organizations, both at the local and international level. So what can we do? We continue with what we are already doing, but we are also seeing at how we can be able to bring the government on board. We have policies as the government of Uganda. We have plans, we have commitments, as the government of Uganda. But the question remains, is the government doing what it is supposed to be doing? So as UMWA, short form for Uganda Media Women's Association, we are trying to see how can we involve the government, how can we involve the different stakeholders, the development partners, the media houses, to see that we're able to push this agenda to fruition.
Thank you very much. I think a round of applause for that very specific and to the point commitment. Allow me now to hand over to Her Excellency Lisa Chesney from the British High Commission. And I think I'm going to...
Thank you so much. This is fascinating, and I loved how you opened that. I agree with my dear friend Frederica. We've got to find a way, haven't we, to talk to people that disagree. And to our Uganda Media Women's Association, I thought that was a brilliant answer. And also shout out to you. I had a really interesting session with UMWA, a real sobering insight into what it takes to be a woman in journalism and the things that people have to face every day. So thanks for everything you're doing on that. I think my question to maybe to UNC. I think let's come to you. What can we do? So we've talked about the benefits. We've got to make the benefits clear to the people that think they're going to lose. But what role could the Uganda Media Commission or those that are in guardianship positions play to make sure that there's a degree of standards or regulations that make sure what is beamed into people's homes or is on the radio is gender inclusive? So I talked earlier, I don't know if you were here, about the BBC actually now has got obligations to make sure that they represent the full breadth of Britain's personality and makeup when they think about who they select as experts on panels. What do you think could be done to make sure that gender inclusivity is hardwired into reporting on every channel? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Ambassador. What can Uganda Media Center do to enhance this conversation about gender equality and combating the whole evil of child abuse through early marriages and early pregnancies? There is no doubt the best way is to enforce and enhance communication on public communication. There is not much you can change minus increasing presence on both government-owned communication facilities, but also even those that are private-owned. Because even those that are private-owned are managed by government of Uganda through Uganda Communication Commission. So if government said we need this amount of time on every radio station or TV stations, these actors, the owners, must give that airtime. Probably you would blame it on us not utilizing such airtime to enhance this cause. critical cause. I must say that the biggest form of communication, especially to the rural poor, not as elite town dwellings, are radios and TV. And these radios change the mindset, change the narrative. I was born and bred in a rural setting. I came to Kampala later, but I grew up fearing Honorable Matembe before I even saw her. I can tell you, I grew up seeing these rural drunkards, deep rural. If they talked harshly to their women, they would shout, "I'm going to call Matemba," and you see somebody apologizing right there and then. I tend to think probably Honorable Matembe doesn't know how powerful she is in this cause, because personally my own relative was kidnapped, a lady kidnapped for early marriage and taken. So the mom followed her alone. So he reaches home, they were already making a party. The party was on. They had taken a girl of like 14. She was, I think, in P7. So when she reached home, she shouted, called the name of the girl and shouted, "I'm with Matembe, you'll not die." The whole clan ran. They did not run to the nearby bushes. They ran to Tanzania. They fled to Tanzania for a whole 1 year, thinking Matembe is still around, waiting to arrest them. So, Madam Ambassador, that there's nothing we cannot do apart from enhancing. We'll have space on all mediums of communication, like I said, and now what we need to do is, I've seen the first moderator being a commissioner from the Minister of Rural Government, maybe a conversation should be enhanced such that we have a lot of talk, a lot of debate on radio stations. When you go to most radio stations, their conversation is largely tilted to politics. And personally, I find over political talk is also disorienting. We need to talk about certain issues that are completely of human interest, that cuts us all at a cross-cutting level, and we minimize on this political talk. And in this case, gender equality is one key thing that we need to talk, and we shall change people's mindset. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you responded very comprehensively. I think you talk about the standards in private and public media channels and enhancing on use of radio and radio programs. We will hear from you on the commitment after these events. What can you do from your position once we come back to you on the final question? Thank you so much. Let me now hand over to Her Excellency Signe Winding for the next question. I think I have someone moving the mic.
Yeah, thank you so much. And well, I think my question is back to what I also talked about, the importance of engaging your youth. We know that most youth don't really read mainstream media. They don't watch the mainstream television. They look at social media, they follow different influencers. They don't necessarily follow the big news anchors or listen to what comes out of politicians or other. They follow influencers, media stars in other ways. They are influencers themselves. So my question maybe to, you call yourself Uncle Mac? It's to Uncle Mac is sort of your view on how youth influencers in general, how they can actually play a role in shifting gender norms, working around this, and what can we do and what is needed to amplify the voices that are coming out from such youth influencers here in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the team for risking and having a comedian on the panel. It is a very good risk to take. My name is Uncle Mark. I work with a media house, that's Next Media. And I'm glad and excited to be here. First and foremost, I think I would want to also just twist the narrative a little bit on how especially the young people have tainted just a different picture of what media is actually. We must first of all shift our mentality to the fact that all of us are influencers. If you just have to have one person who you're able to influence, whether it's your family members, brothers, relatives. But the most important thing is to also understand that as we are looking at ourselves as influencers, you're looking at yourself as the first media. So you're the first media before we go to factors of traditional media, TV, radio, and to mention but a few. So if we can, first of all, honor the fact that we are all media. That's number one, before we put anything else into consideration. Because things like TikTok, Instagram, TV wouldn't have been available if we didn't have the personnel, the people to think on their behalf, the people to reason so that the views are put on TV. So that's point number one to iron out. But also, as an influencer and as a social change activist, I believe that we should first of all honor the foundations. Most of us have where we come from. I come from an African setting. I'm a traditional man who understands that every man needs a woman, then you give birth, you marry. So I have a traditional system I follow. So understanding the foundations, most of our foundations, if I'm not mistaken, 100% of us don't have this in our setting, don't have early marriages, don't have childbirth, don't have such factors. So, so we might not really give it back to media, the TV and radio, but we will first put it upon ourselves that our mindsets have to be refreshed a little bit and taken back to the foundation of honoring culture, of honoring family standards, of honoring the basics before we really reflect it back to media. So as an influencer, first of all, change of mind is very important. Not even change of mind, a sober mind. Because so many people look at us as, you're an influencer, I just have 100 followers on TikTok, I can't do anything, I have 50. But listen, the 50 that you have are the people you're able to influence, which actually gives you a certificate or qualifies you to be an influencer in your own category. So I think change of mindset is very important before you even run to TV or radio, because if you have no views, then we may not have TikTok. If you have no videos released, we may not have Instagram. If you have no anything to really produce, to showcase to the world, we may not have the quotes in quotes, the one that we call media, the TVs, the actual hardware that actually reflects the messages out there. But also, another point to note is people should also understand that before you influence, you have to first be influenced. You can't give what you don't have. So as a social change and behavior activist, I first of all must understand that before I stand to speak about early marriages, I must be a feasible example, number one, before you speak, because you give only what you have. So it comes back to us, the influencers, to prepare your mind, your personality, but also to prepare your character before you present. There are so many people who really post so many things on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, news, but well, you'll get the likes and the comments, but you may not drive the change because of what we know of you. So point to note, number one, to first honor the foundations of we can go only as high as our foundations are. So you must honor the foundations and the systems that you're standing on. Then also that will bring back the fact of mind change, which will at least have you influence before you influence others. So I think that's really all I can say. If you're to forget any other point, just remember to first influence yourself before you influence anyone else. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you so much. I think you were very clear with your last message. Of course, taking the positives of the culture, the ones that are already supporting gender equality, the aunties, how they share those beliefs and positive cultural practices. And I think I'm taking we are all influencers in our own families, with our friends, so it's about us, each one of us, individually taking action in our categories, as you mentioned. Thank you for that. Let me now call my next co-moderator, Her Excellency Max Gaynor, for the question. Thank you. Maybe to Ms. Catherine.
Great, thanks very much. It's incredibly difficult to get authentic voices and good evidence to get the scale and the real personal impact of some abuse of rights of women and girls. And some of the most powerful sort of testimonies I've heard have been from either survivors or perpetrators or really good investigative journalism. But in each case, the people were quite exposed and sometimes got quite a lot of abuse. So I'm just wondering how you think we can do good investigative journalism, good work to really bring out the scale of some of these issues while protecting the people who are affected.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. A very, very important question. Makes me think about, I come from Vision Group, our campaign a few years ago on FGM, female genital mutilation. At the time, most of us, myself inclusive, did not quite understand what FGM was about. And as a young journalist, I thought, well, it's someone's culture, it's their rights, until I got the medical understanding of actually what FGM is and what it does. And at that time, we went down to the grassroots, looking for I hate to use the word surgeons. They call them, they're really not surgeons. Let me use the crude one, the cutters. Thank God. But what has happened, the community has reacted differently. Those who support it will continue to run over to areas where probably they won't be got. Some of them, for me, what I'm trying to bring about that it requires a synergy. The media alone will not do it because the media cannot protect, for example, a victim. But if we, for example, work together with UNFPA has a survivor who has a shelter, you can tell the story ably by protecting this person. If it's a minor, for example, we have policies that help us protect minors. You cannot publish a minor's name or location. Before you talk to a minor, it's important to talk to parents. Traditional media and journalists practicing in traditional media have been trained to do this. But today you cannot say that the media voice is only from the traditional media, as my colleague Uncle Mark has just said. We are all now media. So I may handle something professionally, but we'll probably throw it out all there. And before you know it, the victim has been harmed. But, and probably traditional media comes on much later to kind of try to smoothen things out, but at times it's too late. So one of the solutions is really general public education on how to use the media. How that is going to happen, I'm not sure I know, but all I can say is that traditional media has been empowered to do that successfully. The only challenge is because of the professionalism, at times the impact of the message may not come out as you want it because you're shielding the victim, you're shielding at times the perpetrator in some of these things. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you did, but of course I think we can continue to discuss for hours on the topic, especially now with online safety requirements as we move from traditional media to other media channels. I think we'll deserve a separate discussion. How can we enhance and strengthen the online safety, especially for survivors. But I think it's clear, the key takeaway in terms of there are mechanisms to ensure that the media can continue to amplify the voices of the survivors, but they still protect their rights. So we are very glad to hear that statement and commitment from you, Ms. Catherine. Let me now hand over to the last co-moderator, Dr. Katia, for the final question to the panelists, please.
I think now it's on. Right, okay, thanks, Laura. So the last question now, to which actions can the media commit to promote access to justice for the survivors of SGBV and ensure social protection of them?
Thank you. I will give maybe 30 seconds to each one of the panelists so you can respond to the commitment question. What are you committing to date out of this event and this dialogue here? Let me start with Madam John. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, before we get into the commitment, it is very important for us to know what we are committing to. As the media, we still have a very huge gap that needs to be filled. So even if I make a commitment over something that I do not understand or appreciate, it will not make any difference. Because we have so much that is going on. As I said earlier, the government has put up measures. We have UCC that has put up measures as well on behalf of government, but we are not seeing teenage pregnancies ending. We have seen NGOs come on board. We have development.
Thank you. So how are we going to be able
every radio, TV, to put across specific message. And usually, we're talking about poverty education or security. But like some researchers have shown, where in Uganda, where cases of defilement and school dropout for girl child are largely in areas that are very poor. The last statistics, according to the last census, it was Bukedi sub-region, which is in eastern Uganda. So there is a component, in fact, the elephant in the room is poverty. So we must enhance our poverty eradication programs, because a poor person is a danger to society. Most people marry their girls off because they want some money, or some young girls go into some transactional engagements with opposite partners because they sort of want to get some money. So this one must go in hand in eradicating poverty. The more we eradicate poverty, the more we reduce on gender inequality and all other vices associated. I must say, Uganda police has a role to play in all this. Okay. I know on the media we are a little bit tied because someone will abuse a child, but because you fear at that moment he's still regarded as a suspect, you'll not even mention the name, you'll not name and shame, because the law does not allow you. I can see Deputy Chief Justice maybe in his regime, he may see how we can protect journalists who expose such criminals. Because now, when will I write the story? If there is that stage of magistrate courts, court of appeal, up to the Supreme Court, we have not mentioned this person because he's still presumed to be innocent. Quite challenging, and you all know, if this person gets off the hook and he sues the media house, the cost of defamation are terrible. But again, I don't want to throw in the towel. We must really work against all the orders and expose these criminals within our society. And I don't want to sound resigning like my colleague. I think Uganda as a government, I still mention my heroine there. We've moved a lot, and a lot, indeed, much as a lot is be finished, but we have really moved a great step. I submit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Obed. We will, of course, also follow up on that time allocation at the radio stations and how can be that scale from the small practices that we are seeing from the different programs in the villages to a national scale as well. Looking forward for that collaboration. And let me now hand over, the question is on the commitment, and as Dr. Katia, let me hand over to Uncle Mark, and I'm still waiting the comedian part.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, just to emphasize the point of mindset change, just to let you know that the matters that we're dealing with are not let me say, small matters, and I honor the fact that we stage such discussions. So as next media, and this I would love us to recognize the fact that this is the first time we are seeing a media house put up a content hub to train content creators, not only on making content, but also modeling, mentorship, developing, and also when it comes to conceptualization, because we have seen a lot of influencers, but also content developers come up with content because of the cash cow. How much do I go home with? Not forgetting that you are actually selling a lot in exchange for that cash. So as I'll take this moment to speak on behalf of the media house, that we have decided to come out to also recognize the fact that there are so many other factors that cause these that we are discussing today. So as a media house, we have put together moments and sessions where different content creators will get an opportunity to be trained on a professional level of discussing and creating content that sends messages of positive change, impact, but also social development as compared to just creating for the cash cow and for money. So that's our commitment, and I believe that in a few days, months, and years, we will really see a very big change regarding these matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. We'll be following up to learn the outcome of those wonderful efforts. And finally, Madam Catherine, your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I would like to say that, first of all, our primary commitment is to continue operating professionally. That's it. Investing in professionalism, training, capacity building. But having said that, I want first of all to acknowledge the partnership of different agencies here. As Vision Group, we have in the past worked very well with UNFPA on such social campaigns to reduce teenage pregnancy, to promote safe motherhood in communities. We have worked with the Swedish Embassy before to promote midwives in the community. We've consistently worked with the Embassy of Netherlands in other factors like promoting farming, and that is as a way of reducing poverty. Like, there's so much we can continue to do. Partnership is key today for the traditional media. We all know that there's been a technological disruption, and traditional media can no longer operate as it used to. So for some of these campaigns to be successful, we must have partnership. Journalists are just amplifiers on a message. We may know part of it. We may never get to know all of it. So it's important for, in these partnerships, for example, information sharing. Where is a change? Can we highlight the change? Where is a challenge? Can we expose that challenge? Where is a success story? Can we promote that success story? We cannot move ahead without that partnership. Maybe I will just stop at that common saying that media afflicts the comfortable and comforts the afflicted. So we'll try to continue to comfort the afflicted and also to afflict those who are comfortable so that they can act for the cause of reducing teenage pregnancy. Thank you.
I think very powerful words to end the panel. We will be looking forward for the media partnership with the campaign to ensure that the power of the media is not only to inform, but to drive that social change and also convince the non-convinced to be part of the change. So thank you so much, my co-moderators, and thank you so much especially to the panelists. I ran out of time for questions from the audience, so I will need permission from the Master of Ceremonies for those hands that I see them in the room. I think maybe you can definitely write them down. We will make sure they are shared with the different panelists, and we will have the opportunity to discuss further at the coffee break at the end. I'm sorry for that, and allow me to request for a very big clap for the panelists. Thank you.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Laura Criado, who is the program coordinator for gender and youth at UNFPA. Thank you so much. The elephant in the room is? The elephant in the room is? You were not listening. The elephant in the room is poverty. That's how you know who was sleeping and who wasn't. All right. Very powerful, you know. This is the right time. You know, you wait to announce you're part of a sector until the people in the sector speak. Ladies and gentlemen, a part of the media. So I was like, just in case. but I think also the fourth estate, you expect too much of us. And I understand why. We do what Uncle Mark discussed, a mindset shift. We're the ones in charge of where your mind goes to and diverts to. So it's important that we use our power wisely, right? Allow me to welcome, in the interest of time, Ms. Dolia Jok, who's the head of programs at Faraja Africa Foundation, who's got a great panel for you today and a great conversation. Uganda Media Women's Association have the road to a gender-responsive media in Uganda. And that's a conversation you can pick up with the team there. I wonder whose elephant in the room we are currently holding. It's yours? Okay.
Thank you very much. Please check on your neighbor. Are they still alert? Do we need coffee? We are going to a very interesting session. Session men. The men we have been talking about since morning, they're going to join us on stage. And I'm going to invite the following gallant men of valor. In Lusoga, they call them Abasada Mekete, the male champions. And join me to invite on stage the Deputy Chief Justice of the Uganda Supreme Court, Dr. Flavian. I will introduce you formally, but please take a seat. Allow me stand up when I'm in the presence of high delegates like him. Joining him is Ambassador Josh Arthur Mangi, the Commissioner, Kenya High Commissioner to Uganda. Thank you. Joining the two gentlemen here is a man who uses satire and art, Dr. Jimmy Spire Sentongo. And lastly, a young man who is very passionate about mental health. Many of you know him. He's called Donzen Muanguzi. As this gentleman joined me on stage, many of you may not be aware, but the Deputy Chief Justice is a very passionate women's rights activist, but also a male champion for the Austrian Embassy, and he collaborates with very closely with the Austrian Embassy. Ambassador Arthur is also a male champion, by the way. That's why I called them Ambassador Mekete. These are the champions, the men who speak for women who cannot speak. He is the ambassador of the Royal Netherlands Embassy in Uganda. Are we okay there? Donzen, are you okay? Yes. Dr. Spire, you're fine? Yeah. Okay, we'll dive straight into the discussions. As you've heard from panel 1 and panel 2, could men be the center that must hold for us to achieve equal rights and equal freedom for women? Could they be the missing puzzle? That is the question we've been asking ourselves all morning. Okay, I know technology can be, sometimes you have to just touch, sometimes you have to press harder. Yes, thank you very much. I'll dive straight into the conversation. I beg you stay alert, because these gentlemen are going to share with you their experiences of championing the voices of women, but also of being a role model man. Many of us know men face backlash in community when they step up for women. Men are looked at as weak when they speak up for women. So they're going to give us their experiences in the different sectors where they work. I'll start right with you, Deputy Chief Justice. The justice system is mainly patriarchal. I actually have grown up in a community where when we have a female justice, they say, no, she's a very difficult woman. How is the justice system being redefined to do away with such biases?
Well, I think the justice system in Uganda has tried as much as possible to deal with the issues of gender. I will tell you that the Constitutional Court, which I head, has come up with very significant decisions in respect of changing gender bias, gender inequality. For example, if you look at the court structure itself, we set up, for example, a division of the High Court, a family division of the High Court, specifically to address gender-related issues. the Constitutional Court has come up with various decisions. For example, we used to have divorce. Men and women had different grounds. A woman would have to prove two grounds. One, adultery, but in addition to adultery, she had to prove something else, either cruelty or something. So if your husband was adulterous but not cruel, you would never divorce him. So that provision was struck out, and at the moment now men and women have similar grounds. Now, but we have also gone ahead to, especially in respect of Article 21 and Article 31 of the Constitution, to broaden equality, gender equality between women and men, especially in the areas of inheritance. We have struck down provisions of bride price refund, which used to be really an impediment for women to leave abusive relationships. Inheritance, women now have equal rights as men in terms of inheritance. Don't ask me whether the application on the ground, but at least now the provision has been made clear. So as you can see, we are trying, and in any case, we worked with the Austrian Development Corporation to come up with a gender bench book, which has all those cases. And then when we recruit judicial officers, we try to train them into gender responsiveness, or kind of avoiding perceived or actual bias, which can actually affect their decisions when they are writing decisions. So I think, as you can see, we are doing very well in the judiciary. And we shall continue to do well.
Thank you very much. I will go straight to you, and maybe just to reflect a bit without watering down what you said. Indeed, when the no refund for bride price was passed, I think I'm one of the champions of that. And every time I'm in my village, I'm telling them, by the way you marry, the cows won't come back. And I want to thank the Constitutional Code for that. Moving to you, Ambassador Josh. Kenya has made strides in gender equality. And I want you to just share what we can borrow. How can we mobilize men to champion this narrative that we're selling?
Thank you. You know, Chief Judge, I think these ladies have tricked us. They did all the wonderful presentation, and then we're coming last. Shall we mess up, really? We'll try. First and foremost, let me state that I'm especially pleased to contribute to the conversation on redefining masculinity. And in Kenya, redefining masculinity means letting go of outdated stereotypes rooted in power and control. Kenya's journey towards gender equality offers a number of lessons highlighting progress. We know, we accept that we are nowhere where we want to be, but we have put in place systems and laws that will ensure that in the next very few years we'll be where we are. For example, in the legal system in terms of jurisprudence, we have several laws that protect women equality. The first one is the 3% rule, we call it the 3% rule, which is the gender rule that requires that all institutions, in terms of employment, 3% must come from either gender. Ideally, we are saying that 3% must be women, because initially it used to be all men. So now, be it in the parliament, be it in judiciary, be it in the executive, 3% must be women. Now, in parliament, it has become more of a tradition that when the speaker is a man, the deputy speaker is a woman. In the judiciary, it has also become pretty much a tradition that when the chief justice is a man, the deputy chief justice is a woman. But right now, both the chief justice and the deputy chief justice are actually women, and the registrar of the High Court. Now, in the executive, out of 22 ministers, it has become, it's law, not even a practice, it's a requirement that at the very minimum 5 women must be ministers, and that we have actualized. So we have 5 women in the cabinet. Even in areas like ambassadorial appointments, 30% have to be women. So, and this is being done by law. So this is something that other countries can copy. Uganda can copy that. Another area where Kenya has made very serious strides is on laws on domestic violence. Initially, there was this stupid belief, I'm sorry for lack of a better word, there's this belief that, you know, it was okay for a man to discipline his wife. Or rather, a man who did not discipline his wife did not love her. But that has now been criminalized, and therefore domestic violence in Kenya is very strictly followed. Anybody who batters a spouse will be charged in court and convicted. Another area is in the areas of inheritance laws. For a very long time, women were not allowed to inherit property from their parents, from their fathers, from their families. Only the boy child was allowed to inherit. But now laws have been put in place to ensure that both children, be it female, male, are all allowed to inherit from their parents. Now there's also this culture on early marriages, which really is child abuse, child abuse. But they used to hide it and you know, comfort it as culture. And there are some some communities in Kenya that will marry off their children at the age of 14, the age of 11, the age of 12. But now that has been criminalized, and the age of consent is very strictly enforced. And that's why now we have, if you are caught marrying off a child who's below the age of consent, you will be charged with rape, statutory rape, and also with child development. Another area that we have really made strides is on the area of FGM. This also they used to pretend, they used to hide behind culture and say that it was our culture. They were not calling it FGM, they were calling it circumcision. And that was a culturally accepted practice. But now that has been criminalized, and anybody caught committing FGM on a girl will be charged in court. Lastly, in terms of these laws, or in terms of these legal systems, we have, it's now a requirement that in every police station, there's a gender desk, where if any kind of violence that is meted out to a woman, when women are uncomfortable to express themselves to men, because sometimes men will be more sympathetic to fellow men, now there's a gender desk where the women can go and express themselves. Let me also say something about education. You know, in our system now in Kenya, education has been, I'm looking for a better word to use. Can I go to gender neutralized or gender promoted? In the sense that now, you know, many young ladies, especially in primary schools, used to fear going to school during times of their menstrual periods. And this will lead to a lot of them dropping out of schools. Now the government provides menstrual hygiene products to schools, and therefore, and this has really seen many young girls going to school. Right now, the university index in Kenya is almost 50% women, sometimes 49% women, 51 sometimes either way. And this is because most of the young girls are helped, are given free menstrual hygiene products, and therefore that goes a long way in protecting gender equality. I could go on and on, but let me also say that in Kenya we believe that true strength is not about dominance, but it's about empathy and respect for others. My honest observation in Kenya is that institutions that are led by women are more successful, they are less corrupt, and generally more responsive. And I think there's a deliberate effort by the government to put women in more managerial positions, because experience has taught us that it does appear that they are less corrupt and more committed. say something? Now, lastly but not least, it's because of time, let me say that in Kenya today, a man is not allowed to sell matrimonial property without consent of the wife. Now, initially, women will work very hard and acquire property together with the man, but the man will sell the land at will. But now it's law that if you are going to sell matrimonial property, both parties must consent. And here, this is a law that was passed specifically to protect women, because a man can sell any time. So this is, those are some of the examples that I can say that we have done in Kenya, and I believe Uganda can borrow a little from that. And let me conclude by saying this to the men who are listening here today. Your voices matter, and your actions matter too. We all need to be part of the solution, because gender equality is not about losing anything, but it's about creating a world where everyone, regardless of their gender, can thrive. Let us build a fairer world together, and let us start by building a fairer Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For the men out there, he said, your voices matter, but your actions matter even more. Now, to our next speaker, he uses satire, he uses humor, he uses art to champion conversation. He has led impactful dialogue on women's rights on social media or through his accounts, led discussions with the fellow men and women and communities. To you, Dr. Spire, how do you think we can use media, humor, art as a tool to facilitate this discussion without the backlash on men? But also, how can we use this as a tool to challenge these negative norms?
Thank you so much. Actually, I just wanted to start from what my colleague said, the ambassador, that institutions which are led by women in Kenya are the least corrupt, and I wanted to associate with that in Uganda, with the example of parliament. But yeah. I don't know why you have to laugh, but the point is that whether the institutions led by women are less or more corrupt, I think that is sometimes a silencing and a tactic for excluding. Because when women are corrupt, then one would immediately say, but they were telling us that women are not corrupt, so should we include more women because this one is corrupt? But I think if we should be measured the same. If there are so many men that are corrupt and you're picking one woman to say that, therefore it doesn't make any difference having a woman or not, that would be a wrong argument. But coming to your question directly, there is a certain Irish writer, Oscar Wilde, who said that if you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they will kill you. There are certain things about which it is very risky speaking, not only politics, even in social matters that are policed. It is always the case that when people benefit from something, they'll find a way of protecting it by all sorts of taboos, all sorts of silencing tactics. So they make it difficult to talk about certain things. There are conversations that you will certainly know that if you initiate them in Uganda, you'll have to first thicken your skin. But if you go through humor, you realize that even one who would have fought you, they are not sure what to do. That is the difficulty of humor. You're not sure whether you're not going to look foolish if you fight back. If I draw a cartoon about you, let's say as a man, and in this case it's a man drawing it, you don't know whether you should complain or just keep quiet or just find a way of humorously getting back. I think that's one of the strengths of humor. But also, considering that humor travels quite fast, especially in societies like ours where we always want a joke. Before this other, in quotes, serious news gets its way to the audience, people have already selected the humor. There are people who will open papers and they go straight to the cartoon before they look at anything. There is a story that Honorable Matembe narrates in her book about, she had said something about the president. I think it was about bailing the cat, who will bail the cat, and then a cartoonist drew Honorable Matembe tying a bell around the president's neck, and the president had to call her, asking, what is this I'm reading in the papers? But what I want to say is, humor is very difficult to avoid. It is very difficult to run away from. Second, it simplifies complex messages such that even those who would otherwise not access them, let's say those who cannot read and write, they are cartoons that do not carry any words. And anyone, be it in the villages, I've sometimes gone to my village and someone has talked to me about a cartoon I drew, where you didn't even expect that such a person would access it. So it's not really to argue that humor is the only effective way. There are all other ways can do this or that. But humor has a particular advantage of speaking to people on subjects, especially that are sensitive. Just as you see how I use humor a lot in politics, commenting about otherwise politically risky subjects. And some people have asked me sometimes, how come you have never been arrested? Maybe it's partly because I have no case. And if I draw a cartoon, let's say of the first son, the burden is on him to prove that the cartoon is of him, it's not on me. I've just drawn something that happens to look like you, but it's not you. But on the other hand, you have already gotten the message. So gender issues or issues to do with women are also that sensitive, some of them. When you're talking about privileges of men, there are certain privileges you'll not be able to discuss freely. When you're talking about sexual harassment, there is a time I ran a campaign about sexual harassment in recruitment in Uganda's organizations. And it was interesting to see that many men joined the conversation, yet if I had started it maybe from a combative approach, maybe they would have simply fought back or would have gone on the defensive. But because I used cartoons, they were also talking about ways in which they relate. Oh, okay, I think this has also happened at my workplace. I think we need to talk more about this. Even our daughters are going to fall victim to this. So that way, I think it breaks many cultural, many political barriers, and it allows us to talk about things that are otherwise taboo. There are many, the powerful will always create ways of directing narratives, and it has been part of the conversation from the start today. One of the strongest tools in controlling society or any group is to control the narrative. And this narrative is controlled by managing the main outlet and the modes of communication. So sometimes what I'm doing with cartoons is to make sure that I push back against the main narrative, the master narrative, to ensure that while we are talking about this, I'm reminding you constantly, but we are not talking about this. We should also talk about this. So countering narratives is part of what humor does effectively. A noise that you cannot ignore because it's making people laugh, and you cannot continue talking about the other when you see everyone is laughing about this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, like you have said, humor simplifies complex matters. You draw about it and everybody identifies with it, and quickly you will find people adopting. Change starts to happen with humor. Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives. I'll move on to Mr. Donzen. You are very passionate about mental health, and we know issues around negative norms against women and girls cause a lot of mental health issues for women, even for men. As a young man, how do you think we can build a generation, a movement of young men who are shaping the narrative around gender equality, but also shaping it as part of their identity, part of their responsibility, and taking it as their role to society?
Thank you so much. You know, like earlier on when the electricity went off, I saw very many people scared in the room. I wish that same fear it reflects the fear of teenage pregnancies in Uganda. Then we can quickly work to get the power back on. So that is a very important topic that is close to my heart, teenage pregnancies, because I may not have lived it, but I have shared experiences of it. So I talk about it passionately. But going back to your question, I think too often boys are raised to believe that strength means control, that emotions are weakness, and that power belongs to men alone. That is what the society raises men to believe. These ideas not only harm women and girls, but even boys ourselves. Because they limit boys in creating circles of support. That means boys are going to be silent about things that matter. That means boys are going to be violent because that is the only way they can express themselves. But also they will not consider the positive outcomes of equality. And these are societal norms that have been imposed. When I responsibly. Thank you so much. Where young men speak out against harassment, child marriages and violence, and become allies of protecting young girls and women. Because that is a privilege, but we need to use it very responsibly. We shouldn't work against our fellow sisters, our fellow young girls in school. And I love the statement the Excellency from the Sweden made, that we are not working against, but we are working with. Those are such important qualifiers in this conversation. Just one word can change the narrative. When we talk about mental health, as you asked, and empathy, where young men feel free to cry and nurture and prioritize their mental well-being. In many cases, you find that also there are social norms that are imposed on men as rights of birth that they may not otherwise agree with. But that is what the society has told them that they have to go through to become strong men. So when they hide that anger within them, they become more reactionary, they become more violent. And otherwise, they could have been more subtle, responsible, and contributors to the community. I think we also need, as young men, we need to expand opportunities. Where boys and girls both dream beyond stereotypes. We need to expand opportunities, closing roles and careers without fear of stigma. We need to choose careers and roles without fear of stigma, that who is going to see me if I join the army? Who is going to see me if I'm competing with this? I love to see that there is a lot of women who are joining the tech industry, combating technology-facilitated gender-based violence is one of also the key priorities that we should look at. Because the media is wide, social media is wide, digital media is wide, and just one comment like this can cause a lot of emotions to someone. So if we have young women who are empowered to actually use technology not to fight back, but to inform, to teach and educate, but also craft medias and interventions that not only communicate for one gender, but for all of us to exist. I think it's important and it will support us in achieving our goal. I know that some of us have had the privilege to go to school and some of us have not had the privilege to go to school. But we also need to revise what education means in this context. There are very many young girls who are studied, but not through the formal institutions like we know, but they have the talent, they have the capacity. But many of your institutions close doors for them and they're not allowed to enter. Because this young person who dropped out of school very many years ago, and remember we are talking about re-entry, school re-entries, but this young person lost her future very many years ago, lost her education very many years ago, and because of the conversations we are having now, she's regaining it. But your institution is closing the door on her because of the qualification she did not get. I think we also need to reimagine that. And this goes for both men and women. Because for me, if as a young man, I have a very beautiful mother, and I've also got the chance to meet these beautiful women here, and I'm also part of the great campaign, and I'm using this voice to speak. But the testimonies that come from this voice are informed from the communities I represent. And these communities include young women and girls. Some of them don't have jobs. Some of them are struggling, to get food, to even, some of them even fear to report because they're scared of their lives. And we don't know how to address that from a young man perspective. What future do we want to see for these young girls, but even us as well? Because I think, for me, if I saw my sister happy, or my mom happy, or even all of you happy, I would be happy as well. I would go grab a cup of coffee, knowing that I'm not competing for it, but I'm sharing it. It's very, very important. I've got to learn more about women empowerment and rights. As I grew up, it is something that I didn't know earlier on. How do we start having conversations at an early childhood development level about what that means? Because these fights start as early as fighting for the toys, that this belongs to me, that doesn't belong to you, that is for a girl, this is for a boy. Things that we actually ignore, but yet very, very important. We need to have these conversations started. We need more lived experiences. We were shooting this video, and thanks to the UNFPA team, we were shooting these videos, and we're talking about teenage pregnancies, but where are the girls that have lived that experience? Why are they not here to talk about it? Some of it is to protect who they are and their identity, but is it a choice that they made for themselves? So I think we also need to prioritize lived experiences, because you need to attach a face to the problem. And once you attach a face to the problem, then you start working on how to solve it. We need to stop hiding where these inequalities are. Dr. Spire brings them out of the cartoons. I bring them through my voices, my social medias, my work. I've moved around, and now we are here. But there is that girl who is not here. I took very good notes. I saw government has 1 hour of media play, right, across all the medias. In this campaign, if we are all saying that we are allies and joining the same cause, how about if you advocated for that 1 hour to be given for this campaign, to talk about the issues and I would be there myself, He has accepted with a sign. But no, guys, I'm going to ask him to say it, because don't take my word for it. He's going to commit, because as a young person, I'm privileged to be here, so I can ask for what I want for my fellow girls and my fellow boys, right?
Thank you, colleague. This is not Wolokoso, like Ugandans say. it's real statement. We have 1 hour prime time. Just let us know which medium of communication or which radio you want to be, and we'll have it. I guess Commissioner here can testify to that one.
I have just secured, I don't know how many million views for my fellow young girls, sisters, and brothers. Imagine that if we have very many young people like me who can go out and speak, even in rooms that we are not at the moment, I think we'll have the right way. So when it comes to mental health, guys, we first be compassionate, have empathy. Let's use facts as well. And in this case, when I say let's use facts, I'm not talking about data. I'm not talking about statistics, but the things that we are seeing in our communities. We need to highlight them. We need to talk about them. 20 years of teenage pregnancies. And today we are able to sit here and talk about it as if it has not lasted for that long. Those are how many political terms? Imagine that. Yeah? If we cannot make this our personal responsibility and we speak about it passively, then it's going to stay another more 20 years. We cannot afford that. We are seeing the demographic dividend right now. How can we talk about harnessing the demographic dividend when we know very many young people are actually not making informed choices and not able to sustain themselves? For me, I love to hear commitments on what can we do to also increase household income. Because we know we have young girls who are actually running homes and they're not educated about it and there are no jobs. I can speak about this forever, but
I can hear the passion.
Again, I will say, I will use my TikTok and Instagram. If you see it, please repost, because we are going to be talking about messages that create male allyship.
Thank you.
For this campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Don Zen. And indeed, passionate, like he has said. And from his discussion, what I've got is start the conversation early. Stop telling your daughter, sit like a girl. Stop telling your son, sit like a boy. What does that mean? It confuses the child. But also, from his submission, I see he says he wants to see a future where both women and men share power, if I got you right. I'm going to open up the floor, and I know we are fast spent on our time, so I don't know, MC, what you say. I know people have hands already up, but over to you. You will tell me how we proceed.
I have a very back-to-back program that I am also willing to honor as a girl child.
Okay, for the sake of the girl child to honor her back-to-back program, unfortunately, we will not call for discussions or comments now. I request my colleagues that are back there, please take these comments and we'll share it with the Deputy Chief Justice, the Ambassador, Dr. Spire, and Don Zen. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on this panel. It was an honor hosting you, and I'll walk you down.
All right. A big round of applause for Dolly Ajoka, our moderator, who's head of programs at Faraja Africa Foundation. And someone told you they'll be on TikTok. They didn't tell you what their TikTok handle is, but I'm sure you'll find him. So as I give the Deputy Chief Justice a few minutes to sort of stretch, you know, because being also on a stage for long can be a bit, but I'm aiming to still wrap this by 5:30. So eyes on the screen as we give the Deputy Chief Justice just a few minutes to stretch out, and then I'll invite him to do our closing remarks. Team?
According to the 2021 Uganda Bureau of Statistics report, 95% of women and girls have experienced physical, sexual, emotional, or economic violence. More than half of women aged 15 to 49 admit their abuse came from an intimate partner. In 2020, nearly 10,000 teenage girls were defiled. And in 2023, police recorded over 15,000
the Honorable Minister present, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, let me write on the protocol that was earlier on highlighted here, so I can only say all protocol observed. Good evening to you all. I thank the organizers for coming up with this event to foster awareness towards ending harmful social and cultural norms against women and girls in Uganda. Perhaps this is a subject that is at the bottom of my heart because I was raised by a woman. My father died when I was in P4, and I was raised by my mother. So now, sometimes I sit and wonder if it was my mother who died, would I have been raised? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. This topic is really, at the bottom of my heart. It should be noted that violence against women is not a distant problem. It starts right in our homes, neighborhoods, and communities. Yet it continues to fundamentally undermine the safety and dignity of Ugandan women and girls. These women and girls are our mothers, daughters, relatives, or neighbors. It's not only a criminal matter, but also a violation of human rights with far-reaching negative consequences on the social, economic development of our nation. I think when you work in my space, what you see every day sometimes can be traumatizing, especially if you are handling a criminal session, which is gender-based violence related. One time I was handling a criminal case where a young girl of 2 years, I think she was 2 years, was defiled, and then her uterus got affected, I think, as a result of that. I think she was kept in the house. Then I think it started rotting, so it was removed, and then she underwent a reconstruction surgery. So I was one, as you retire home after listening to such testimony, you start wondering, what if this was my daughter? So these are realities which we do. So when you convict such a criminal to death, okay, of course we don't, let me not take that direction because it's controversial. But if you give, kind of like a harsh sentence, sometimes it is out of emotions that you are living what you are seeing. So the 2024 police crime report exposed thousands of domestic violence cases with women and girls as the overwhelming majority of victims. The survivors get physical scars, psychological trauma, as well as missed opportunities for education and economic empowerment. These have lasting impact even across several generations. Therefore, gender-based violence is a national crisis that demands our collective and immediate action. You see, that girl I was talking about, I saw her praying in court, because she was young. She was happy, laughing, but she didn't know because she's still young. But the reality will set in as she matures. So these are realities. To be able to end harmful social and cultural norms against women and girls in Uganda, we must not only unequivocally acknowledge that the problem persists on a large scale, but also ask and answer the right questions. We must also understand the problem, know the root causes, know how to address the root causes, strengthen prevention and response, and be alive to the obstacles that must be overcome. And on this, I thank Katia and UN Women. We've been working on a project for special courts for gender-based violence. And I think we have taken a very big leap. We want to have cases of gender-based violence heard on a daily basis, so that if you commit an offense against women, it should be handled immediately. Because what we have been seeing in practice is that some of these women, she's defiled in Bwaise. If a case takes 5 years, she has moved to Kasokoso, and you can't even trace the witnesses, you can't trace the victims, so the case dies a natural death. It's dismissed. So we are trying to make it very easy for trying these cases on a daily basis. We must recognize that the menace of gender-based violence in Uganda is not only ubiquitous, but also embedded in historical roots and largely perpetrated by the culture of impunity. This is due to many harmful cultural norms and traditional practices, such as early marriage, the payment of bride price, and widow inheritance. Apparently, my mother, I think, married at 15. Yeah, so I used to joke with her before she died that if my father was still alive, I could be a candidate in my courts. But of course, the law doesn't operate retrospectively. But you can see it was acceptable in our culture to marry at a young age. And then you would produce as many children as you can without a break. The question now is, how do we address the root causes? Number one, we challenge discriminatory power relations. Violence against women is a result of historical power imbalance. We must actively challenge these dynamics and create a society where women and girls are not forced into subordinate positions, because that's where the problem is. Yeah, so at home, you look at your boys as they are supposed to be superior to the girls, and you create that power imbalance. And they get married, they go with that power imbalance into their new relationships. Two, promote gender equality, empower women economically through education, ensuring girls stay in school and women have access to resources and opportunities. Because you see, economic relations are actually at the center of this. A poor woman cannot even live an abusive relationship. She thinks of, if I leave, where do I go? So if you empower that woman, that's why the educated can, if you become impossible in the home, the following day she will walk away. And that balances the power in the home. So if you are a man and you know that your woman is empowered, you will think twice before you take that route. Number three, foster supportive environments, create and maintain safe spaces for women and girls, and cultivate a culture of consent and mutual respect. You see, for example, one of the challenges I see, especially in our legal system, is how we protect women, for example, who come into such situations. I remember I had a matter where a father defiled a daughter. Now, you have this daughter coming to testify against the father in court. So assuming this daughter is going to suffer two consequences. One, the community where she's coming from, they are going to say, you are traumatizing your father. You are shaming our community. That's one. But again, assuming you discharge the father and the father goes home, how are they going to live together? So we must have a system how we protect such people. How do we strengthen prevention and response, increase visibility, and voice, amplify voices of women and girls, especially those facing intersecting forms of discrimination? Then support survivors. This one I have already talked about it. Engage men and boys. Involve men and boys as allies in prevention efforts, as they play a crucial role in creating lasting change. I'm happy that all of you are taking the lead in strengthening this response. At home, I have 3 boys and 2 girls. Now, so I have empowered the girls. What happened is that when they want to introduce a very difficult topic, which they think I may say no, they will go in their room, discuss, and then send a girl. So one of the daughters, when I see her coming, laughing, and I know there is something controversial she's introducing. So I have empowered the girls, so meaning that the boys know that if you have something difficult and controversial, send the girl. And it has worked. So anyway, you will have your own way of doing things as well. So scale up prevention campaigns, intensify and expand prevention efforts to reach all communities and address the diverse forms of violence women and girls face. Okay, so as I conclude, what are the challenges to overcome that we must be aware of? Number one, cultural barriers. So as we struggle to change this situation, we are going to be faced with the cultural barriers. As I think one of us mentioned here, when they were trying to talk about genital mutilation, you go there, and I remember one of the MPs who was championing it, she lost in Kapchorwa. Kuka, I think she was called Kuka. She lost badly in, just because she talked about it. So if you are in politics and you want to talk about that in your community there, you must be ready to lose elections, for example. So it's a sacrifice you have to make. So that cultural barrier, where you are trying to help someone and someone thinks you are actually against that person, very challenging. Two, violence and early marriage. High rates of violence and early marriage negatively impact women's health, education, and economic productivity. And that's why I said that we have introduced special courts. Then economic disparities. Women face limitations in accessing resources, including land, and face lower levels of economic participation and productivity. And that is an area where we have to concentrate on economic empowerment. And then data gaps. There are significant gaps in gender disaggregated data, particularly in areas like gender pay gaps, access to assets, and gender and poverty, hindering effective monitoring and policy making. Of course, I was, for example, talking to one of the police officers, and he told me that the cases that go through that reach court of defilement are almost like a third. The rest are compromised around the police, around the communities. They pay back, and they never cross. So you can see we don't even have enough statistics unless you go to police, and police, when a case is discharged, they usually don't record it as a case. So that statistic is kind of lost. And as I conclude, let's all embrace this program, and we will definitely achieve its aims and objectives. I'm happy that I'm the champion. I'm a friend of the champion. So I can only say thank you for inviting me, and with those few remarks, allow me to declare this interaction closed. Thank you for listening to me.
Wow, thank you so much to Deputy Chief Justice Dr. So they have come. The solutions, the solidarity has come, isn't it? Yeah? Thank you so much for everybody who actually gave their thoughts. This was a dialogue. It wasn't one-sided. It wasn't one voice. It was many voices. And I know there are many voices we haven't even been able to capture. Big thank you to the Austrian Embassy. Dr. Katia made very many good remarks. I think I actually wrote down a few, noting what was going to carry us, that the partnership between women leading with vision and men standing in solidarity. It's a new model of leadership. It reflects the spirit of the Beijing Declaration, and it says that gender equality is not the responsibility of women alone, but a shared societal goal, practiced and celebrated by all. So this, everybody has a responsibility. The media has their own, the leaders of mission have their own, the ones in the judiciary have their own. Humor, you really challenged us. Jimmy Spire said there's a leader. Not all women are what? Are not corrupt. Eh? Not that every woman, we shall prove you wrong. There's a lot more integrity on this side, but thank you to every single one, to UNFPA, of course, our core conveners, and to Faraja Africa Foundation. The team from Faraja Africa Foundation, a lot of you have been at the back, but still, wave wherever you are. Yeah. You know, sometimes when people do all the running around and you don't appreciate them, it's not worth it. I myself, I think I didn't do a good job at introducing myself earlier on. I'm Flavia Tumsime Kabura. I'm the head of broadcast at Nation Media Group here in Uganda. And I think before that job, I was a very good champion of women's voices. So use me, if I could say that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.